informal group. So we have a bit of an outline that we're following just amongst ourselves, but we don't have anything planned. We have no slides, no pictures. You're just stuck with us. So I thought first we could introduce ourselves. My name's Beth Fisher. I met Matt in college. We both went to the College of Wooster, so I've been with him since I was 19, so way before he was a police officer. I work as a speech pathologist for a contract company and a lot of nursing home and rehab facilities in this area, south, north, east, and west. So I've had some exposure to a lot of this community outside of just his experiences for work. We have a daughter who is 13. Say a prayer for us. And I think that's the basics. You want to go next?
Sure. Some of you may know me. For those who don't, I'm Amanda Nadoma. I'm Sergeant Victor Nadoma's wife. I work actually at the City of Wooster, and no, we did not meet that way. And I'm an accountant, and I have a daughter who's 14. She's a freshman, so
say prayers for her too.
Yes. Yeah. And I also have a son who's 2.5. So we've got a broad spectrum of ages in our house, but
I'm Karen Rotolo. I met Scott in college also at Bowling Green State University. He told me the night I met him he hoped to be a police officer, so that was a goal he had for a long time, but it took him some time to get there. We have 2 kids. Connor's 9 and Gianna's 7.5. So ours are squished right together. And I wouldn't change it. We like it that way. I am a teacher at Wooster High School. I teach special education, which I don't tell many people because I do inclusion. And so I'm just a teacher, period. But you guys can know I'm special education. And that helps me sometimes with him.
That's the gist of it.
That's the gist of it.
So I made a list for the other girls. Some of the questions I've heard more consistently through the years. Hopefully we're each going to have a different perspective. I hate to say that we're representative of the wife's opinion of being married to a cop, because everybody has their own experiences and their own take on how it works and what doesn't work. But at least between the 3 of us, we're hoping we can give you an idea. So the first question I usually get asked is, how has being married to a police officer affected your marriage? Like I said, I knew Matt before he went to college for business economics. I did not think that police officer was going to be anywhere in my future. In fact, when he first told me he wanted to do it, it scared me because my dad worked for the government as a customs officer, and he was on the border. As I grew up, I knew some of what it meant to be in law enforcement. I knew what it's like to have a gun in the house, knew what it's like to have your dad gone on holidays. So it was not expected when he decided that that's going to be his change in life, what he wanted to do. But we went with it, and here we are. At least we're in a smaller community, which I think helps to some degree. For me, it's, I wrote notes. I think all police wives are going to tell you that we realize the job comes first. Maybe not in their hearts, but in terms of their time, that's what they need to do first, and we have to sacrifice a lot of family time, holidays, weekends, trips that you've planned that last minute they are unable to go to, and now it falls in your lap, which is very difficult when the kids are younger. You get used to it. It's hard not to be resentful of it sometimes. I get really tired of hearing, well, I gotta go, I don't have a choice. It makes you sometimes feel like you're second rate sometimes, even though we know that they don't have the choice. So I think for me, that's probably the biggest sacrifice in terms of marriage. You're not always first.
Yeah. It's never easy to be married to a police officer, kind of like what Beth said, to where, I mean, not as though we're not important, but there's a certain I guess, priority that lies with the job to where it's, you know, our holidays aren't on Christmas, or the birthdays don't fall on the day of. It's, you more or less, you work around whatever their schedule is. And Victor, he was a canine officer, actually, he still is, we still have the dog. And I mean, there were nights to where, you know, he would be off and we would be on our way to a movie or to dinner, to date nights that don't usually always happen. And you get the call of, hey, I got a car stopped, can you bring the dog? Well, sorry, work comes first, we'll have to wait. And I often think that in any relationship there comes baggage. And in that baggage, I think you have to find someone to love you to help you unpack that baggage. I think with any police officer, there's an amount that they carry with them that we have to help them along, because it's not an easy job to do. So I think that there's a lot of flexibility that comes with it, such as, you know, when he would go to work at 6 o'clock, he would be leaving, you know, usually about the time I would get home, and it would be up to me that I would want to make a conscious effort that whether I'm passing you in the driveway, as into whether I get an extra 20 minutes with you before you start your shift, to at least bring you dinner, something to where at least can maybe see you each day if you're working, because you never know.
I just agree with everything they've said. I mean, the time is, we're second rate. We're second rate when it comes to time, and so when, with kids being little, Scott was still working nights days when the kids were little, so it's a lot of shh, daddy's sleeping. Or just, okay, let's go to Walmart because you can't be quiet anymore. Like, just finding ways around the logistics of life, and knowing that they don't have the choice. So being there as best you can for them and supporting them in that decision. And
I think we rely on our extended family a lot more than you might if you just had regular 9-to-5 sorts of jobs within your family. My family lives out of state. However, Matt's parents are right in town, and if court came up and he had to go to court, they filled in for babysitting while I was at work. Or, you know, if last minute she has a play and he can't go watch, the grandparents pack the car and they come instead, just to lessen that blow. So I think extended family is really, really, really important to help through those more difficult times. One of the other questions, which kind of ties into the marriage thing, is how has it affected raising children? I think police officers are very black and white. My husband was not that way when I met him. He was the guy that walked in the room, kind of made his rounds, was trying, I don't want to say the center of attention, but he liked for people to know he was in the room, and he interacted with different people. That has changed. Now, even if we go to a family function, or if we go to a restaurant, if we are the first ones there, watch the police officers. They're always the ones sitting in the corner to see the whole room. When we're at a restaurant, he likes to face to the center of the room. He doesn't like his back to the room. In church, same thing. When we went to a wedding, I sat down, I turned around, he wasn't with me. That's because where I sat was too central. We had to be more removed. And things are very definitive. Because of my job doing rehabilitation, I have to see the possibility and the gray areas for my patients in order to progress them with their treatments. So we're very different in terms of melding that at home and raising a teenager. He's very black and white. You broke the rule, that's the rule. This is the punishment, see you later. It's not that easy all the time. You sometimes have to look at it from a different perspective, and I think for raising kids that can make it really difficult. Another experience when they're younger, and I wonder if you'll go through this, because this was hard. Our daughter had a very, very nice friend in kindergarten through 2nd grade. She was a lovely child, very nice, and as girls are, they want to go to each other's houses, they want to spend time outside of school. Unfortunately, this little girl's mother knew many of the police officers for all of the wrong reasons. It is very difficult to explain to a 7-year-old why your friends cannot come over and play, why you cannot go to their house, why you cannot tell them where you live. So those sorts of experiences kind of contributed to why Matt and I eventually moved out of town. We're in a smaller school district. People, of course, still know sort of who he is, but in terms of friendships that she was starting to develop that were becoming more difficult to police, it made it a little easier to be outside of city limits, for at least for our family. But now you're still in the school
Yeah,
system.
there's been birthday parties the kids have been invited to, and me being a teacher, I also have a little bit of cynicism. I see some families that I know I don't want my kids involved with. But Scott will, I mean, when the birthday invitation comes home, Scott's like, what's the parent's name? What's the address? What's the phone number? And so, I mean, it's a predetermined thing. And there have been times we have, luckily the last one, it was at the bowling alley, so it wasn't at somebody's house, but we still didn't want our son portraying to this little kiddo that, hey, we're going to be friends. So we up and planned a weekend out of town. Because it was like, how do we just say no? So, yeah, we have finagled it a few different ways of, oh, no, you can't make it to that one. And it is tough. I still have not quite found the words to tell my kids that you can play with them at school, but you're not going to go to their house, and they're not going to come to our house.
And it's not easy to even make the decision to bring children into the world, let alone given their perspective on things, because with Victor, he was adamant, I do not want children. And it was based upon, obviously, a lot of the stuff that he does see, to where, you know, unfortunately there are people out there who do harm children, and he had a really hard time coming to terms with deciding whether or not to actually have a child, knowing these certain things that do happen in his experiences and what he has seen. And obviously, he lost that argument because he's 2.5. And also with having a daughter, I mean, when you have sleepovers, who is she inviting? Who are their parents? And then comes the laundry list of, I need all their parents' names, I need contact numbers, do they have any allergies? I mean, there's a whole list of things that come along with, you know, if they're going to a basketball game, you know, they're not going by themselves. You know, you will
we
go.
become a shadow. I have to
Yes.
shadow my daughter. Most of the girls her age are getting dropped off at the game, dropped off at the movie theater, picked up at the end. I'm not allowed to drop off.
We're sitting close behind.
Yes, we're the ones kind of in the corner.
Yeah, we're not really there by ourselves. I mean, we're with people, but not really. But
being older too, I know you probably cell phone use becomes more complicated. It's already complicated enough with junior high and high school kids, but posting things on Instagram, texting is very restricted in our house right now. We don't post any pictures of her with him. We don't pictures of our house, of our pets, even the picture that you wouldn't think would be a big deal, all those selfies like in the kitchen or whatever, make him uncomfortable, because if people associate her with him or become familiar with where our house is or how it's laid out, it makes him uncomfortable. So it's a different set of problems. It's the same problems everybody else is dealing with, just amped up tenfold. Anybody else have anything to add about kids?
No, I guess not.
No. I also know that Matt, I don't think all the parents do this, but Matt doesn't, I think he wants to be coaches of teams and involved, but because of the complicated situation that can create with parents, we're also kind of restricted in terms of who does that. So that's another little caveat. Has being married to a police officer ever affected your experience within the community? Yes. We don't eat certain places. That's because they know someone who works in the kitchen who might figure out that we ordered food there. I think every police wife will tell you that. There are some places that the guys just won't go eat, so we go without them.
Or the best part is when you order pizza, you put it under a different name. I mean, we have many Papa Giorgios probably around town that have ordered from Donato's, or, you know, when you come in, it's, what's the name? Smith. I mean, it's just the unfortunate part of, or when you do make that mistake of doing that, it's, oh, I have your pizza right here. Oh, we didn't order a pizza, that's not our name. But, yeah, I mean, that just goes along with it to where, I mean, even if you're in a store and it's, you need to move to the next aisle now, or we need to leave now, or, you know, I'm going to the car, I will meet you outside. It's just certain things that maybe other people, it doesn't affect them in that way, to where they see someone approaching and it's, you need to go now, or
I've been sent away.
Just go.
Yeah.
Just go. That's what Scott will say. I'll be browsing the racks at Kohl's and he's behind me, and all of a sudden, just go. Okay. And you just like, he's like, you want to look around and see what he's talking about, but you can't. So you just, okay. And if the kids are with you, oh man, come on, Gigi, come on, Connor.
And it hasn't all been bad. I mean, there's been plenty of times that we've run into people who have thanked him profusely for, you know, hey, you know, thanks for all you did, you know, my child that, you know, we were having an issue with. And I mean, there's plenty of those accolades to go around, but it seems like when we go to dinner, we try to go out of town. If we go to a movie, it's elsewhere. And just because you don't know
Who you might bump into, especially when you're with your children.
Scott and I went to Dairyland one afternoon. This was a long time. This was quite a while ago. He was still working the street. I think we were on our way back to our car with our ice cream, and he says, hold my ice cream. And he goes over and arrested some lady.
Yeah.
Comes back and gets on his phone and says, I've got so-and-so right here. I know she's got warrants, blah, blah, blah. And so we have to stand there and wait until somebody working comes